What's going on, guys? This is Remo with Level 1 News, and I'm here to bring you our take of the new sword rework that's going to be showing up in Dauntless tomorrow. Now, while there's a couple of videos showing the sword rework and things like DPS and its technicality, this is a little bit different, and we're talking really more about what the function of the sword rework does for the sword and what the future might look like for other weapons and stuff. We've guessed, and me and myself personally have guessed a few different scenarios on different games from what we've seen going into the future. So I feel like I have a little bit of credibility, but I'm here to sort of build that up and let you know what we think they have in store. All right, a little bit about this new sword rework versus the old sword. The movement speed is different on the new sword rework. This moves as a faster paced weapon. I'd say it's even a little bit faster than the pole arm. Now, what that means is that you can move in distances different than the way the old sword works, which would have you stay a little bit more in place as you're moving. You hop around, you jump from here and there, and the speed of it and the way you move is faster, which lets you even get out of the way faster from incoming attacks. So what comes with the sword rework? Well, first of all, you still have your meter bar, so that's there to then unleash your actual special attack, whether it's the elemental or it's the cyclone attack. But now you have a valor bar, so there's a two-part with this, similar to the way other weapons work and even the strikers that you're using it for multiple use. So the valor, you build that up, and then you're able to have another sort of special attack in between, and there's two sets of attacks that you can do. You can do it just as like a gale slash kind of move with the wave coming out of the sword, or you can do it within a combo, and then there's an actual move set with that. One being that it plants almost like the hammer skill of where you're planting an ether, but it's like an ether that damages the enemy. So those are sort of the newer attacks, and then obviously there are new combos and stuff that let you sort of fly around and stuff like that, and not the way the old sword used to work, where you were more planted in place and you're like shifting side to side. Now, I think this is interesting because the weapons like the hunger was really well set when obviously it absorbed your energy, but the attack that you would swing the sword side to side would gain your life bar pretty quickly. And now there's not a set of move lists where you would be able to take advantage of that. So you would have to just be able to use the sword in a way of which you would maneuver your skills and your combos to gain you back the health that you lost. Technically, the old sword acted in between a lighter use weapon and a heavier use weapon. That made you move in an awkward position, something like a hammer and stuff. So it felt like just a heavier use weapon with the DPS not measuring up to something like the hammer or the axe. So one of our big predictions is that what this means for the future of the sword in general, since they have shifted it to more of a lighter use weapon. A part of the sword rework is measuring it up to with something like the strikers. The strikers have multiple uses in them when you're going in between different attacks to then build up to your ultimate attack. So one of the big things is us going into the predictions aspect of this. Being that this was a sword that was a little bit heavier set, what you'll notice is that it switched from a two-handed weapon to a one-handed weapon with a lot faster movement speed. What that ends up doing is now rethinking the way the sword is used, and it's a little bit lighter of a weapon. So what this means is that, what could be on the horizon for new weapons? Will there be a true great sword, which a different move sets than what we had from the original sword? And what does that end up looking like? Now, I think that the team will try to take as much feedback as possible from this weapon and start looking into other weapons that they might want to start reworking on. I don't imagine they're going to rework every weapon, but this might give them an idea of what weapons are not used as much. I, for one, am not the hugest fan of the guns. While that being one of the highest DPS weapons and a weapon that you can truly solo with, it's just not as fun to play as other weapons. So I feel like something like that would be really well thought. But the question is, do they start looking into more of the rework aspect, or do they start looking into more of getting the next weapon out? And what is that next weapon gonna look like? I don't imagine it would be sort of the great sword, because then people go back to having the thought of the original weapon. And so what does come out? The rumored bow that people have been talking about. This does put back another shelf into the arsenal of like weapons that they can use. and like a true grade sword would be the most beneficial when it comes to that. There aren't that many heavier weapons now, than being really the hammer and the axe, with the sword acting as a medium, and now that's sort of a lighter weapon. So there being only really 2 weapons that were your heavier set weapons, people don't tend to lean on those weapons as much, just because other weapons that are faster can get the damage out as quickly, if not faster, than the hammer and stuff. I, for one, have been using the Sword Rework for a while, and I would say that it's a much more fun weapon to use than it was previously. The sword was my original weapon when I started Dauntless, and when the strikers came out, I put the sword down. Trying to pick it back up afterward was a little bit too difficult for me. It just wasn't as fun of a weapon, and I didn't see the full benefit of it. So I wasn't able to use the old sword as frequently. But now with the Sword Rework, I'm going to jump back into sword, see the difference in DPS numbers. It's something that I really like the way they handled it. At first, it didn't seem all that different until, like, I think halfway through a behemoth, and I was like, this is a newly made weapon that was meant to have fun and also use benefits of movement speed and stuff with your Slayer. But what do you guys think? Do you like the Sword Rework? Do you want them to rework some of the other weapons? Should they put the original sword back into the shelf and start treating it more as a great sword, changing those movesets, making it a heavier weapon? Or do you want to see the new weapon in general and just see what that might be? But for all things Dauntless, when it comes to the rumor mill and being able to predict the future on what they might do, and possibly get some insight from the team on what they're thinking, what the next steps are, tune into our videos, subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on Twitch, and watch our streams. We like to do Dauntless streams that we not only show off new content and talk about the patches, but we also like to give things away. So stay tuned for all of that. This is Remy with LVLONE News. Appreciate your time. Have a good one.